Let's review everything we've learned about quadratic functions by using this worksheet. Some people call it the greatest worksheet ever. Those are their words. I just came up with the name. All right, so what you see here is that we have a starting function, y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. Luckily, it's already in standard form, so I'm going to transfer it, just rewrite it. If it's not, we would have had to put it in standard form, highest degree to lowest, but I could just repeat it there. All right, and from that, I could pull the coefficients, the a, b, and c values. So a is 1, b is 2, and c is -8. All right. Some of these parts here, how it opens, y-intercept, maybe I could fill those in now, or I could wait till later. So if you know the shortcuts, you can fill them in now. If not, I'll show you how we get them later. All right, I'd like to move in next to the axis of symmetry. So the formula for the axis of symmetry was that the x value is equal to the opposite of b divided by 2a. Okay, so we substitute. So b is 2, so that becomes -2. 2 times 1. So -2 divided by 2, we get -1. All right, but very important, I want to write this because its axis of symmetry is an equation. So write it as x equals -1. That is the correct answer. It has to be written that way. All right, and we can go ahead and graph it. So on the lower left, it's a dashed line. Make it very light. Your choice if you want to put it. Helps sometimes, other times it makes things a little messy. All right, now that we have the axis of symmetry, we can get the vertex. So in order to do that, we're going to take that x value, -1, and substitute it into the starting function, or the standard form, which in this case are the same. All right, so that's going to look like this. Y equals, and I like to write it out first with parentheses. And then substitute the number. So that is a -1. And you could just type the whole thing in the calculator, or -1 squared is 1 plus -2 minus 8. So we have -1 minus 8, and that gives us that the y is -9. Again, the vertex is an ordered pair, so we need to write it as -1, -9. That's the correct answer. Now is a good time to get the points in the graph. So we're moving on to the points of the graph. And the reason we found the vertex first is, if you know the vertex, it makes it easier to pick 2 points on the left side and 2 points on the right side of the vertex. So 2 points on the right side, just go in order, use the numbers. So to the right of -1 is 0 and 1. And if I go the other way, it would be -2 and -3. And all those values are going to be substituted into the starting function. I could write it again here. So that is x squared plus 2x minus 8. All right. The first one, -1, is done. So for that, somebody needs to reference. They could just see the vertex. Then these other values, for -3, so it's -3 squared plus 2 times -3 minus 8, and that would give us -5. So the ordered pair is -3, -5. Now we substitute -2. So same thing, just follow what you did up there, just substitute -2. That would give you -8. We would have 4. That's actually very simple because you have 4 minus 4 minus 8. So -2, -8. 0 is probably the easiest one to substitute. 0 squared is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. Minus 8 gives you -8. So 0, -8. And 1 squared, 2 times 1, minus 8. So we have 1 plus 3 minus 8, -5. So that's 1, -5. And notice that these points, that the y values are symmetric. Now I'll write this and then erase it. Once you have the vertex, these values are the same, and then these values are the same. And that is because of the symmetry. But let's get rid of that. Now that I have the points, I should plot them. So there are my points, and if you look at the directions, it asks you to also label the vertex and the x-intercept and intercepts. So we have the y-intercept here. So I will label that. That point right there is the y-intercept. And I can go ahead and write it in the top middle part. Y-intercept is -8. And notice that we could have just gotten that by looking at the c value. Okay, our vertex is here. The point at the bottom. I'm not going to connect the points yet. Maybe it's better to get the x-intercepts. That way I have a better graph. So I'm going to move on to the factoring part. Now for the factoring, you may need to do the work on a separate sheet of paper. But if you multiply the a and the c values, that gives me -8. And now I need two numbers that multiply to -8, but they add up to the b value. So it has to be like 4 and 2 in some type of format. And it's 4 times -2. 4 times -2 is -8. 4 plus -2 gives us that b value. So I can factor this, and it will look like y equals x plus 4, and then that binomial is multiplied by x minus 2. Up to you if you want to put the multiplication symbol in between. I didn't give myself much room. Alright, so that's the factored form. Now to get the x-intercepts, I have to find out when is y going to be equal to 0. So for that, I take my factors, x plus 4, I could put the multiplication symbol in now, and x minus 2, set them equal to 0, and I apply the zero product property. So x plus 4 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. And when I solve this, I will get that x equals -4 and x equals 2. Those are my x-intercepts. So I can go ahead and graph those. But first I'm going to write them up here. So -2, oops, excuse me, -4, and +2. Another way you could also write it is with braces. So -4, 2. Okay. You can see that the x-intercepts have been graphed in red, and now it's time to connect. Again, try to make it a U shape. It's supposed to be curved at the bottom. So what you could do to force that is you take the bottom 3 points and first connect those, and then continue on. There you go, and then just finish off the left side. Okay, there's the parabola. All right, we could fill in more information now. Which way does it open? It opens up. And that's also reinforced by the fact that a is positive. What is the minimum value? Well, the lowest y value is -9. And what is the maximum y value? Well, it's going to go up forever and ever and ever. So it's to infinity and beyond. Okay. I'm going to write myself a little note that the minimum is the lowest y value. There we go. And let's also label the x-intercepts. So there's that one. And there. All right, so graph is done. Oh, one more thing. We should write in that this is the x-axis and the vertical one is the y-axis. All right, we're getting there. It's time for the quadratic formula. So here it is. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. But before I get to that, I'm going to do the discriminant, which is the part underneath the square root you see in green. So I'm just going to rewrite it here. B squared minus 4 times a times c. And I'm going to substitute the values, which, again, we found at the very beginning. So that's 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, and -8. Now, do this without a calculator first, then confirm with the calculator. So 2 squared gives us 4. This minus here gets rewritten. 4 times 1 times -8 is -32. So if I'm subtracting -32, I can add the opposite, and that gives me 36. Okay, that's my discriminant. Now, since the discriminant is positive, that tells me that when I set it equal to 0, I'm going to have 2 real solutions. And also, when we're looking for the x-intercepts, there will be 2 x-intercepts. All right, let's move on now to the quadratic formula. So the reason I like to do discriminant first is there's less now to substitute. All I need to substitute is the b value, plus or minus. I already did everything underneath the square root, and then 2 times a. Don't forget the a. All right, so the 3 things I have to substitute. The b value is 2. The discriminant was 36, so I can just take that from earlier. And I have a is 1. All right, so continuing this, we have x equals -2 plus or minus square root of 36 is 6 divided by 2. And now we branch off. We have the plus side and we have the minus side. So for the plus side, it's -2 plus 6 divided by 2, which is 4 divided by 2, which is 2. Okay, again, same as before. And the minus side, -2 minus 6 divided by 2, Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Okay, that's good, which is what we also had earlier, and it's on our graph. The last thing we have is the vertex form and x-intercepts using that. So we can get the vertex form by completing the square. So if you want that practice, you could do it that way. However, since we already found the vertex, and we know the vertex is negative 1, negative 9, those are actually your h and k values that are referenced here. And then the a value we have from the beginning, which is 1. So I can just substitute everything I have there. So we have y equals a is 1, x minus, now the h is negative 1 squared, and then plus negative 9. And that could be cleaned up a little bit. The 1 at the beginning is not necessary, 1 times anything. So y equals minus negative 1, that's x plus 1 squared minus 9. So there's the vertex form. And if you found the x-intercepts, you would get the same thing we found earlier, that the x would be negative 4 and positive 2. So if you set the y equal to 0, add 9, take the square root, you get plus or minus, you're going to get negative 4 and positive 2. Okay, and if you look at this entire thing, look at all that information. Everything at any point is consistent, tells you the same story. If you find x-intercepts one way or another way, or graph it or substitute, it's always telling you the same information. So it's consistent, which is good. And congratulations, you have just completed the greatest worksheet ever. Pat yourself on the back.